Check, check, check. Hi everyone, how's it going? It's dolltr. Nice to see all of you here. We are here for, it's not tips and tricks. Goodness, my show title is wrong. Let's fix that. Let us fix that. Because it is not tips and tricks, but it is hybrid home studio today. Hi everyone. Hybrid home studio. If you're watching on YouTube, greetings. Hope you're all doing well and good. And let's make that change right here. Bam. But nice to see everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. My name's dolltr, or I also go by Claire, actually. I prefer Claire, especially when I'm here with 343. But I'm an instructor at 343 Labs. Some of you know me from another show that I do called Tips and Tricks that I do on Monday, which is what you saw just now. But welcome to Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, and we are here for some hybrid home studio stuff. Ooh, also, yes, go ahead. Cool, let's move that around. But yeah, great to see everyone here. I'm just going to pop over into the chat, say hi. Oh my goodness, hello. Hello to TWD, hello to Mick, hello to Jonathan again. Ryan, hi. Ryan's a friend of mine, amazing musician. Go check out his music, everyone. Thanks for stopping by, Ryan. Really appreciate it. But if you are tuning in for the first time, everyone, I saw a couple of the numbers bump up. Welcome. We're really happy to have you over here. 343 Labs is a school that's based in Manhattan, but we're also currently having a location in Berlin where our co-founder Max is leading the way, and over there where it's hopefully much nicer for like in-person events. We haven't had anything in person in Manhattan recently, but we're having classes and small private lessons and limited groups in person. If you want to take classes with us in Manhattan, we're an Ableton Certified Training Center. We also have a lot of courses available for regardless of whatever DAW you use, different kinds of music production topics. So things like Logic, songwriting, different elements that you can start to use if you're interested in music production. We also have this 343 TV series that we are running every day of the week at 1 p.m. EST, or EDT actually. We're EDT right now. EST is going to come in, I think, November or October. But hopefully by the time that we get then, maybe things will be a little bit better. And even if they aren't, we'll still be powering on and we'll still be doing the best that we can, running daily programming for all of you and reaching out to the community. Hi! Hello to everyone. If you're just joining in, feel free to let us know where you are tuning in from. Cosmic J says hello from Wales. I'm saying hi from Queens in New York. I think Ryan's probably in Valencia, I think. A couple of other folks from around as well. Jonathan had a great question. Yeah, absolutely. He asked, or they asked, are the online classes taught live? And they are absolutely taught live. So at the moment, we don't have any asynchronous courses. And usually we think of asynchronous courses as being like, okay, we record some videos and then you watch them. I have a couple of those on my end. But as far as 343 Labs goes, yes, we teach online and in person, which is like kind of like the best part about it. So online live, excuse me. So that means like you'll kind of be in a small classroom with us and you'll be talking about things that we can teach you live in a context. You can ask the instructor questions. So it could be me or it could be any of our other instructors. For a lot of our Ableton Live classes, we have Ableton certified instructors who are teaching them, but also some really great musicians and active producers. I think that's one of the strongest parts about us as a 343 Labs fam. Like we have all of our instructors are really active musicians and active producers. All of the hosts that you are seeing on the daily streams are instructors. So we've got Abe Decay, we've got John Selway, Justin Lewis Beck, who I should speak about because he's the actual person who's hosting the show. Like I don't host the show. I host the Monday show, which is tips and tricks about Ableton Live stuff. But Justin runs the this show that is usually meant to be here. But he has something else that's up today, so he's not able to make it. But hopefully he'll be here at the next show. Last week, Abe was covering for him, and there were some really great conversations that I watched, and I kind of lurked around in the background, seeing him and Thomas chat about stuff. But also, big shout out to Thomas, who's like helping to run things up. And every time that you see the 343 Labs thing on the YouTube channel, for example, that's Thomas behind. So yay, thanks Thomas. But yes, I was gonna talk a little bit about my personal home studio setup, and again, it's gonna be kind of specific to the things that I do for a lot of my personal workflow, but maybe just sharing a couple of things and also a couple of ideas that or items that I found have been essential to my workflow. So you'll notice that the theme of today's stream is like home studio essentials. If we were to be super pedantic about it, maybe it's like dolltr's home studio essentials, because things get so different, right? I mean, sometimes it's really dependent also on what exactly you're trying to do at home. Like if you take a look at the usual setup that I have for the other stream that I do on Monday, you'll notice that it looks different from what I have now. Like now I have more things pulled into my little space over here, and that's because I almost think of my apartment. I have this section in my apartment that's kind of dedicated to a bunch of music making stuff, and maybe that's my studio. I almost would rather think of it as like a space, like my home space, but that's not very descriptive, so home studio it is. But otherwise, if anyone's ever, I'm sure people have done this too, but if you have any essentials that you found in your home studio, like feel free to let us know in the chat or bring that up for discussion. I think the great part about this particular show is that I feel like it's more conducive for discussions rather than just the tips and tricks stuff, only because I feel like my tips and tricks show is just me kind of throwing stuff out there. But if we want to have a conversation about stuff, we can totally do that. Now, one thing that maybe from my other streams you might have guessed is a big part of my home studio setup is really my laptop. I almost think of myself to this and to a certain degree always being a mobile studio, like on my own. I can pretty much carry my laptop to most places with me if I am traveling and if there's not a pandemic, to kind of make music everywhere. And that's what I joke a lot about with people, to not joke but almost say as like a half serious sort of thing. Like everyone has a studio in their computer. Regardless of wherever you go, you can pretty much make music on your laptop if you have some kind of DAW. You can even record stuff on your laptop mic. It might not be the best quality, but hey, you can record stuff with the mic. You can sample things. You can do lots of different kinds of things with them. So what I'm going to do today is walk you through a couple elements in my current home setup, which is very different from my previous setups. If you watch even like season 1 of 343 TV, back then I had a different setup. This was a setup that I'm actually still kind of working out a little bit. I had to move into this version of a setup primarily because I'm doing so much teaching in the fall, and I'm a professor, as some of you know. So for a lot of my college students, it's like I need to make sure things are set up correctly and set up right. So there's that element as well. And then I have this like longer table that I can just put equipment and stuff on for me to teach like my students and teach my mentees. So this is actually a pretty new orientation that I'm in. And it's also, I've also got a new mic, which Abe kind of noticed at one of my previous streams too. I was like, hey, we've got a mic. So maybe this is where I'll start. Maybe I'll just kind of go like in a circle around me. For me, my home studio essentials at the moment are my laptop. Like I said, I have an interface, or actually I have 3, and this is where it gets complicated, maybe. But I have one interface that I love using that's pretty dedicated to the recording stuff. And then for streaming, I actually have 2 other interfaces. One of them I might use also for recording stuff. But I have 3 audio interfaces at the moment. A part of the reason why I have so many was prior to COVID also. Some of these I would let my clients use if they were hiring me to like design their live shows or do anything, because I'm mostly a music technologist and a live experience designer outside of my educational stuff. So that means that I work a lot with specific artists and clients to design their live shows or to help them out with production projects, anything like that. So I end up having a lot of equipment that, even though is in my possession, isn't necessarily actively being used all the time. So 3 interfaces. I have the K-Mix by Keith McMillan Instruments. Big fan of Keith McMillan in general. Most of my controllers that I love are also from Keith McMillan Instruments. For example, the Q Neo, I'm a big fan of. It's a pad-based grid controller that lets you also do a lot of things with pressure and poly stuff that ends up being really cool. So I love Keith McMillan stuff. I also have the soft step and the 12-step and the Rogue that goes with the other controller, but that's more of like a live performance thing. This interface that I have over here that I'm using for streaming, you can't see it because it's kind of tucked away in a corner, but it's called the K-Mix, and it's a mixture of both a mixer and also an interface, so maybe it's some kind of hybrid thing in itself. And ooh, hi Max! Greetings to Max. Max is our co-founder who I mentioned just now, is running the Berlin side of stuff, and he also is running Theory Thursdays, which is tomorrow. Today's Wednesday, tomorrow's Thursday. Hopefully for most people. I think in other parts of the world it might just be like Thursday morning. But in the meantime, here we are again. So the K-Mix, it's like I said, a hybrid mixer, and it's also an audio interface. I primarily use it at the moment as an audio interface, but I like it because generally it's been pretty good for having multiple audio sources. It has 8 analog inputs and 8 analog outputs, which you won't find on all the audio interfaces out there. So I like it quite a lot for that reason. Sometimes I use it even as just a standalone mixer, which I find is really great if you're working with analog gear, which I'll speak a little bit more about later. And someone might have noticed also in the chat about what exactly I have laid out over here, and this as well. So that's it. The Keep It Moving K-Mix, really would encourage you to consider it. It is definitely an investment. It's, I think in the last week when Abe did this, he spoke a little bit about the idea of like price ranges and quality. I would say that the K-Mix is definitely a really good investment. It's about the same price point as my other audio interface here, which is the Apogee Duet. And I'll get to the Duet in a short little moment. But yay, K-Mix audio interface number 1. It's also got some really great onboard effects like EQ and compression and reverb that you can do directly from the interface too, and the mixer. So that's really more of like the mixer aspect of stuff. And also got some great control over things like filters, other kinds of processing as well. So I love the K-Mix, big fan. You can also even do MIDI mapping stuff from it too. So that's pretty neat as well. And maybe on that note, that brings me to my second interface, which is right over here. It is what I'm currently monitoring through for my headphones, and it is the Apogee Duet. So created by Apogee, big fan of Apogee as well. Really wonderful kinds of filters in their interfaces that they've built that have given their sound and their A to D and D to A converters like really high quality. So I love the way that it sounds. I specifically love how it works with vocals. So you might not be able to hear it immediately just through the quality of streaming in general, but if you were with me in my home studio setup, and if I wanted to record something with vocals, I would probably put a mic into the Apogee Duet to get them going over there. And I'll speak about the mics later maybe when I do this like rotational thing later and I do my survey of items. But over here I've got my Apogee Duet. It's really great also for putting normal instruments in. So the way that the Duet works, and maybe this is something that might interest folks also, is that usually on an audio interface for most audio interfaces, when you want to plug in some kind of input, so like a line input or a microphone input, you plug it in directly into the interface. In the case of the Duet though, it comes with a set of breakout cables. So you kind of plug it into the breakout cables that extend out. So because of that, the interface is actually really compact, but you'll have the extension cables kind of sticking out of that. And I love the Duet. It's something that I have owned for years, and it's been trusty for me, and I use it in live shows. I also use it for my own live shows, not so much for other people's live shows, but mostly for my own setup when I'm doing live performances or when I'm doing other kinds of recording stuff as well. So that's where the Duet is in my setup. And I found that it sounds really good also actually with guitar and bass, like when you plug guitar and bass in and record through there as well. So I tend to use that for guitar and bass as well. And on that note, because I just spoke about the live performance thing versus the recording thing, before the entire COVID shenanigans stuff happened, and sadly we were all at home, but please stay at home as much as you can. Be safe and wear a mask. That was my public service announcement. Before that, I used to use the K-Mix specifically for a lot of live performances because it could have so many of those inputs and outputs, right? So as far as outputs go, having the separate outputs would be super useful for sending information to the front of house, for example. Like if I were connecting different kinds of cables and pushing them out to the front of house engineer who's mixing my live show, I would send drums out of one output, and then we could do bass. We could also even split up like high drums, low drums, things like that. Then I would send out maybe chords, maybe then some kind of like lead parts, like if I'm playing some kind of lead synth. And then maybe I'd also send out my vocal separately. So dry vocal and then process vocal, or dry vocal, process vocal and backing vocals, depending on what exactly I'm doing. But yeah, you've like up to 8 different outputs plus a headphone jack also. So technically altogether there's like 10 outputs. But the headphone one would be stereo immediately. So you have like 9 types of things. Ooh, okay, cool. Hi Jeffrey, hi, how's it going? We also had some kind of question about whether I have a boyfriend or not. Honestly, it's none of your business, and that's completely unrelated to what I'm talking about right now. So I'm not going to answer that question because I just think that it's kind of looking over what I'm trying to present to you right now. So you're probably not welcome. Sorry for being, why am I apologizing? I'm just going to be blunt. That's a totally irrelevant question. Let's keep things relevant to what we're speaking about today, which is home studio setups. So yeah, let's not do that. I'm also going to make sure that I am getting a picture of that. So yeah, let's go back and talk about my interfaces. So my third interface, just heading back to that over here, is one that I acquired fairly recently. So like I said, I've owned the Duet and I've owned the K-Mix for years at this point. I think maybe the K-Mix for 2 or 3 years, and then the Duet for a little bit longer than that even. But this new interface, and I may try to pull it out, but I can't really. Maybe. Yeah, I can't. It's kind of like built into my setup at this point. But it is the PreSonus Studio 26C. I'm wondering if anyone's heard of the Studio 26C before. It is a USB-C interface, so it directly goes into USB-C ports. And like I mentioned at the moment, my laptop's kind of central to a lot of my studio. And it's a Mac with USB-C ports. So it's one of the more recent versions of it. And I don't know if anyone's had the same nightmare as I have, but like if you know what this is, you will know what nightmare I'm talking about, which is whenever you're working with like USB-C ports, you need to have one of these adapters for any kind of USB A or B type of connection that you have. And I've bought so many of these, and prior to the pandemic, I would be loaning these out to people or lending them out, and many of them have gotten lost in the ether. So by having a USB-C interface, I'm kind of eliminating this from the entire shebang right now, and I can immediately connect my interface to the port of my laptop. So that's something that I really like a lot. And also, the Studio 26C is an interface that's DC coupled. So if folks are familiar with the notion of an interface being DC coupled, that usually matters a lot when you're working with specific kinds of hardware that may or may not take in different kinds of CV. Or control voltages, and you can send them out from the interface. So because of that, I found that it works really well with any kind of my hardware setups that I do, which involve, synths that may or may not be controlled using control voltages. So very happy about this. The Studio 26C, again, would highly recommend. There's also 24C. The difference in the numbers really just comes from the inputs and the outputs in it. And actually, you know what? I'm going to try and, no, I can't. I'm so scared. If I pull things out, everything's going to fall down. That's the other thing about home studio setups too. And maybe at this stage, I love to throw out a question to folks in the chat maybe, but what are some examples of things in your studio setups that are kind of built in to your setups? If you have a home studio setup already, and by built in, I mean if you remove it, you either would not be able to do without it, or everything might physically collapse. There's different ways of thinking about it, right? So in this case, my Studio 26C is the thing that might physically collapse, but I feel like I wouldn't be able to do without my Duet. I think that's a part that I think about. So yeah, thanks Cosmic J and Tori. Yeah, you'll be surprised. Not surprised, actually. I mean, I talk about this a lot, and I'm just going to speak about it at this point since I have the platform anyway. But many of the streams, people just make completely irrelevant comments or questions about my personal life that you have absolutely no right to know. Would you be asking necessarily another producer of a different gender if they were married or if they were, attached to someone in a stream when they're actually trying to focus on telling you about technology? I even started getting this in more public-facing events that I was doing as personal questions direct to my face, and it's the answer that I used to be very, kind of, how should I phrase this? Now, I used to entertain those questions, but now it's just not worth my time, and it's not worth my energy. So all of that, yeah, call it the hell out. Ooh, Mick, yeah, that's a really great one. The AR8C, that's really great too. I think someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for PreSonus, they've tried to name all of their recent interfaces with C if they end with if they have a USB-C connection. So I found that super useful as well. And TWD. So as I mentioned, the audio interface, the K-Mix is both an audio interface and a mixer. If it's an audio interface, you will have to connect it to a computer. But if it's a mixer, yes, it does work standalone. So it depends on what mode you want to put it into. And yeah, so I have used KMix DAWless before with just hardware. So I think there was one setup I did in a previous iteration when I had the KMix where I was doing all hardware only. So I did, what was I doing? I think I did TR8, which is the Roland drum machine. So I did TR8, and I was clocking the Ocos and the word start to that. So these two I'm going to talk about in a moment. Very excited to share about that in a little bit. So yeah, you can absolutely do it off the bat. And yeah, DC coupling. So I think for a good number of the PreSonus interfaces honestly are DC coupled at this point. I think the other series of interfaces that I like a lot, which I do believe are also DC coupled, are the Motu Ultralights that are really good for that as well. I never owned one, but I used them very extensively in school when I did a lot of hardware related stuff. So big fan of the Motu stuff also. Oh yeah, the M4, that's an excellent choice as well. The Motu M4 is really great. Cosmic J is on an ancient PreSonus FirePod. Oh, that's awesome though. I feel like the honestly I'm very impressed with a lot of PreSonus hardware because I have a couple of other folks who I work with who have been using like PreSonus stuff for years and it's been super steady for them as well. TWD is sharing about his 3-tiered synth stand on an IKEA shoe rack. Ah, nice, cool. 1U patch bay, that's excellent. I feel like I'm always super happy about things that are like 1U or 2U, just because they're like all super small and you know like kind of compact. And I used to, and this is more of like a personal anecdote as well, not so much even related to home studio stuff, but maybe traveling stuff. If you have things like that are like 1U or 2U, it's so much easier to transport than having something that's like 16U, like a giant rack that you bring along. And it's also easier to check or to not check, like if you need to hand carry something as well. Ooh, Jeff, hey! Jeff uses his DJM 900 as a main sound card for producing. No, that's actually pretty neat. I've met a couple of other folks who do that also. I think my other the immediate setup that comes to mind for me is I had a contact or colleague that uses her DJM also similarly as like a main sound card, and that's because she has a very sample based workflow. So what she'll do is she has I think her 2 sets of turntables set up also with the DJM the 900, and she uses the audio functions on the DJM to sample those directly into her DAW, and I think she uses Live also. So yeah, that's totally valid as well. Oh, Jonathan has a Focusrite 8i6. Yeah, that's a good one too. I'm a big fan of like the Focusrite stuff. I know if you tuned in last week for Abe's session that he did with Thomas, there was a little bit of discussion about like audio interfaces in general. And I think I think I am remembering correctly that the general idea is that Focusrite, it might seem like a bit of a lower price point, but I love how it does the job. Like especially if you're looking for an entry level related type of thing, that's going to be a really great option too. So big fan of Focusrite stuff. I for years before I had the Apogee, I think my very first interface, this does bring me back. This maybe dates me a little bit. But it kind of goes back to, I think the 2i2 was my first interface. Oh, memories. The 2i2, and then I think I upgraded to like the 18i6 or something because I was really obsessed and I was like, I need all the inputs that I can get. And eventually I ended up, trading that out for different other audio interface options, but really hardy, lasted for many years, was a very worthy investment. So yay, Focusrite Scarlett series, very, very cool. The comments are just coming, so I'm just having to scroll up a little bit. Yeah, honestly, the MPK Mini Mark II is really great too, Jonathan. I have one as well. It's on my shelf over there, but and maybe some of you folks might have seen this too, but the Mark II just got re-upgraded to the Mark III, and TAETRO, who's our creative director, made an excellent series of videos about the Mark III and about how he feels about them too. So feel free to check those videos out too. I do believe they're on his own YouTube channel as well, I think. So let's see. What are the other comments? Tori, yeah, absolutely. I think it's just completely distracting. And honestly, I appreciate everyone kind of like facilitating this conversation because I think it's important. And I've had people stop me and take me off air for saying this before, but I think it's definitely something that is worth discussing. I feel like if the more we throw it under the rug, the more it seems to be okay when it's not okay. So I am also trying to like make myself more comfortable with this too. calling things out. And I feel like also another excuse that maybe not all people get, but I get a lot, is that I do look a lot younger than my age. So people assume that I'm very young. But hey, I'm a young looking older person. That doesn't mean that you can kind of step over me. So good luck to you if you're trying to do that. Ooh, Ryan just got the Motu M4. That's awesome. Ryan, actually, I'm curious to know, and I'm glad that you're here, Ryan. How are things going for you in Valencia at the moment? I just saw, I think, Ryan, you actually have, as far as controllers go, you have like a wonderful 3 Launchpad setup, I think. Like, not just Launchpad 3, but not the Mark 3, but like 3 literal Launchpads. I saw that. Maybe they're all yours? Are all of those yours? Thank you everyone also in the chat for being so supportive and so inclusive and mindful of this. Really appreciate you being a part of this too. Ooh, Cesar, thank you for tuning in from Peru. To be honest, I use my keyboard so much too, and maybe this is a part where we can also touch a little bit of Live as well. But let's head over here into Live. At the moment, Live is the DAW that I have called up, although I do use several DAWs. I use Logic and I also use Bitwig as well and Pro Tools. But in Live, if you turn on your computer keyboard, which is at the top right side of Live, there's this tiny little icon. And then you can use you should also have a MIDI track up. So let's load some kind of MIDI track up. Let's just put in a random sound. I think I have some saved in my favorites that I do quite like. Yeah, like that. If I have this loaded up, I also have push going here, but I can also use, ooh, whoops, press the space bar too. I can also start using the middle row of my computer keyboard to start playing notes as well. So that's something really cool that you can do. Yeah. Tori, do you have any chord management tips? Like you said, I'm also taking equipment in and out with little bit space, and I see, yes, there is indeed a web surrounding me right now, but I think probably the best investment that I could make, Tori, was these. Like, I don't know if you can see these over here. I wish, do they show up on the camera? I think it does, yeah. So I bought I think, how many did I get? I got these off Amazon not too long ago, but they ended up being really useful. So these are basically a series of cable ties, and I have all of them going around me. As you can see, I also have cable ties for that. So I cable tie pretty much everything that I have. This looks a little crazy at the moment just because I pulled it out of the pouch that they're usually in, but I have these smaller cables that I use a lot for my modular work that I do. And also, let me show you another tip. So maybe another tip that isn't so much a tip as much as it is like maybe something that's a little bit of a quirk that I have is I love bags. Like, I love pouches, pouches within pouches within pouches. And if they look cute, it's a bonus. But the main idea is keep your things in little bags that you're able to carry around with you. So every time I do modular work, I know that, okay, I have all of the patch cables that I ever need in my Rabbit, and I grab the Rabbit and it's like, yay, it's modular time. And then we start doing stuff. So maybe that's like, I guess, the main thing that I think about a lot, just keeping things physically organized too. So absolutely, like you said, the web does get intimidating at times, and sometimes, to be honest, I get locked in here and it's like, how do I get out? But for most part, I think the cable ties have been really useful. Oh, and I should clarify that these are Velcro, so it's not the actual plastic cable tie. We're all trying to reduce the amount of plastic that we're using. So less plastic, but more of the Velcro stuff that can be reused. That way, even if you end up having to change out maybe a power supply or something like that, you don't have to cut out the entire cable tie if it's like a plastic one, but you can use the Velcro. So would highly recommend the Velcro stuff. Yes, Ryan also used the 2i2 as his first interface. Push, I'm so glad that you mentioned Push, Ryan, because I think that ends up being a really good segue. So for me, I have the audio side of things, and maybe I'll speak a bit about microphones as well right in a moment because of this, but I also have Push. Push has helped my workflow a lot, not just for MIDI stuff, because as you notice, there's, different ways that you can play MIDI on it that are very cool as well. I'm also going to make that volume softer now. And I'm also in a minor key. Interesting. But yeah, so Push has been really great, but also great for controlling different kinds of volume stuff too. So right now over here, and you might be able to see this in Live as well, I've got this empty audio track loaded up here, but if I arm the track and let me just arm it. And if I also up this input, this is usually how I just do my Oh, whoops, no, not over there. That's usually how I do like any kind of work that I do with like hardware synthesizers. So this over here, I'm gonna make it softer so that it's not incredibly annoying. This is my zero coast, or the no coast, or the O coast. It goes by many different names. I usually call it the O coast, but I think I've seen in videos it has been called the no coast or the zero coast before as well. But I use the O coast for a lot of sound inspiration. Actually, there's many things that you can do with it. You can even make like complete clocked out things of it, depending on what outputs how you're arranging your outputs, and it's really a wonderful little synth to have. I've had this for a couple of years at this point, but I do a lot of sampling related stuff to it. So for example, if I turned this up and if I head over here, I can go ahead and start recording clips into Live, and I'll show this to you in a second, but you can see this happening. So I actually use it for a lot of timbral stuff instead. So what I usually tend to do is find interesting tones from it, either through doing like a lot of like overtone shaping or contour shaping. Tons of stuff like that as well. And then when I'm done, I'll just stop recording on push. And now I've kind of got that all set up, and I can start doing a bunch of things of it, like, you know, chopping things to simpler, cutting out different parts to run through it. And it might just have been one complete tone that I was doing, because that's what it was. It was just one pitch, really. But I've got a ton of different timbres in here just by poking around, and each of them are subtly different too. And if I wanted to maybe explore pitch even a little bit more, I could do that. So let's head over here. Let's make this louder. And also bring up the volume. And then I'm done. And there's a big swell, as we can see, but that's all right. We can work with that. And I can chop it up some more, do a bunch of different things to it. Yeah, so that's kind of what I do a lot with push. Ooh, also going to turn down the volume for that. But then once I've got one of these like clips over here, and this is kind of long, so might not. Ooh, whoops, push just froze for a second. That's something that I've found, you know, does happen occasionally, but usually if that ever happens to you, anyone, if push works and then it freezes, just go ahead and restart it. It usually should do the job of fixing it. And then once it loads back up again, maybe I'll get back to it and show you a little bit of the workflow for working with audio that I usually approach. So, oh wait, no, is it back? It's not back? No? It is. Yes, maybe? Yes, it is. Yeah. Ooh. It's like half there and half not there. Oh, it is. Great. Let's head over to session view. Great. There it is. So it's also unarmed, that track. But yeah, so I got this over here now, and I can choose to convert it to some kind of like simpler or some kind of drum pad, or anything that I might want to do. So usually if you do simpler, you will be able to play something as like a melodic sound. So maybe that's something that I might do in this case if I wanted to keep working on this particular sound. And that's actually a similar thing to what I do when I work with vocals. So sometimes I even think of just like vocal ideas and start chopping them up as well. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to add a new audio track, and you should see this pop up in, oh no, push just restarted again. That's all right. I'll do it from here in live. Let's pop up a new audio track, which is Command T or Control T. We can also set the input here, and I'm going to set the monitoring to off for now so that I'm not hearing like twice of myself. But if I wanted to start recording in some things, and maybe let's also turn on the metronome in this case. So there we go. Maybe recording even just like some speech. Let's give it a shot maybe. We should, I don't know. Let's see. Hi, this is Claire. We are here at Hybrid Home Studio. We are recording in some audio that I'm going to chop. Hi. this is Claire. We are here at Hybrid Home Studio. We are recording in some audio that I'm going to chop. Hi, this is... Cool, so that's like the first stage of the simpler stuff. And now if I hit over here, we can do some cool stuff with vocals as well. And maybe this also relates a little bit to like the overall sampling workflow too. But one thing that I do like to do, especially if the level of a certain sample is like really low, is to just normalize the volume. So let's right click and do normalize volumes and boom, everything's up. So now I'll have this, it'll probably be kind of loud. So I also do want to be mindful of the overall volume. Hi, this is Claire. We are... Hi. Yeah. I just like doing silly things like these sometimes. I think it helps a lot with creativity too, just kind of letting go and being like, okay, we're just gonna make a mess. And that's the joy of it. Yay. Cool. I'm gonna head over to the chat a little bit also, but yeah, definitely Push being integrated. Cosmic, that K-Mix, but ooh, it would look very nice next to the Morph and the Launchpad X. I do hope you consider it, Cosmic J. Speaking of the Morph, I have it right here. It's a different overlay at the moment that I have, but if anyone's seen the Morph made by our good friends at Sensel, they are amazing and highly recommend that they be checked out too. But yeah, they do some really neat things also with MIDI polyphonic expression, so I love the Morph for that as well. Ooh, yes! So Ryan just got a third launch pad. Nice. It looks really great. The projection stuff is really wonderful too. Ooh, we had a question from Avon Barkstade. Ooh, the song submission stream coming soon. That's a really great question. I do believe it might be at the end of the month. That might be something to check on our website or see for more information. I'm not sure. We might be able to also get more info from Thomas. I'm not sure if Thomas is there. Thomas, if you're there, if you have more info about the stream, that might be awesome. Also, I just noticed that I've spoken well across the half-hour mark. So I'm going to take a quick pause, everyone. But thank you so much for joining in. Really appreciate everyone who has been tuning in. I saw the numbers bump up a little bit. Not just numbers, but also dislikes. Thanks to the person who disliked us. I think anytime someone dislikes you, it means you're doing something that is making a mark on them, so I appreciate it. Thank you. If you're interested in subscribing to our YouTube channel, because we do streams every day, please give us a subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you can be notified for whenever 343 Labs has a new video out or if we have a new stream out. And I also stream on my own YouTube channel too, so you can find me at dolltr in DOLLTR!CK in all lowercase letters. And I do a lot of tutorial stuff too, and I'm currently having a series that's called A Trick a Day, where I have one video out every single day that's just 2 or 3 minutes long, but it shows you a little bit of a trick in Ableton Live or in Logic, or for the next version of the series, I'm actually going to do push tricks for that. So I'm really excited to do that. So maybe you already picked up a couple of push tricks from me. But also wanted to mention that we are having a giveaway, everyone. So I think we might put the link in the chat, in the YouTube chat in a little bit, but we are having a giveaway for a $200 Ableton voucher from the Ableton web shop. So if you would like to be entered for the giveaway, please enter the giveaway and you could win a $200 Ableton voucher by the end of the week. So it's going to be a weekly giveaway that we do at 343 Labs for 343 TV, and you're more than welcome to enter it. I hope people enter so that you can win. That's great. Yay, Ryan, glad to hear about that. Tori, yeah, the Velcro stuff, those help a lot, definitely. I think just, I feel like it's, it seems like a kind of simple type of thing, but maybe it's true for a lot of other folks too, but the more organized I am visually, the easier I can reach things and the easier I can find things, and I am honestly not a very organized person physically. Like, I may be organized in my like work ethic and stuff like that, but as far as like physical stuff goes, like I'll have things hanging out everywhere, but I found that the more I start to clean up, the better I feel. So hopefully it is the same as well for other folks. But yeah, ooh, Cosmic, the Velcro ties with metal buckles. I've been looking for some of those too. Definitely the looping helps a lot, just like being able to keep those in shape. So yay, more loops, not just loops in DAWs and loops in software, but real life loops as well. Loops and loops and loops and well-wrapped cables. Nothing makes me happier than a well-wrapped cable that's wrapped in the right way. So XLRs over here. Great. Let's head back over here. Yeah, TWD, null coast. Like it's cool to to say, this is the null coast. I think like the cooler, honestly, the funnest instruments that I've had have been the ones with neat names. For example, the other synth that I didn't hook up for today, but that I use a lot is the Workstat by Moog. This came out, I think, as a kit for their 2014 Moog Fest run, and it's a DIY kit. So I built this myself. You can see at the back it says built by dolltr, and I have the serial number over here. But it's really great as well. You've got the opportunity to control it through CV and other connections too. So I often use this with my Studio 26C nowadays. And you also got some really great tonal stuff that you can do. So I do use these kind of similarly, but I find that even just having like a tiny little piece of hardware really helps a lot. And that's why when I travel sometimes, even if I can't bring the O-Coast or even if I can't bring the Workstat with me, I bring this with me. And let me see if I can pull it out. I pack it really, really tightly, but even just opening it now makes me happy even though I haven't used it for a long time. This is the Castle. It's so cute, isn't it? It's the Castle by Bestial, and it is made in a really wonderful way that keeps it compact, and I basically pack into it pretty much everything that I might need. So I have this, I have a USB cable for it. I have 3 batteries because it runs with 3 batteries at the back. And it's also pretty similar to how most of these other synths work, but I like using it tonally for different kinds of things. Even if you just put it into live as a direct input, it works really well too. So very happy about this. And it's also got some really, really cute mini patch cables. Well, I'll wrap it up properly. Oh, now that I've taken everything out, it's like I have to put everything back. But it also comes with these like micro patch cables that are so tiny. I don't even know if you can see that on the stream. I'm kind of see, they're really tiny. But really great for being able to find stuff. And honestly, maybe that's a personal recommendation that I make. Like sometimes if you're interested in, expanding your sound palette out of in the box stuff, it might even just be worthwhile getting a tiny synth that you can work with, or just one synthesizer and figure out all the different ways that you can work with it to create different kinds of sounds. I feel like that's a really good approach as well. Like you don't need a lot of synthesizers, although I will say that Justin, when he comes back to properly host the show, you will see his wonderful studio setup, which has a lot of synths and is amazing to look at. So I'm excited for when he's able to come back and host the show. And I'm also going to attempt to pack this back in. It's like I said, all of the compact stuff really is kind of crazy. Like make it fit in here. But I think because I've traveled so much with gear, I've become really used to being able to pack things in to the right boxes. Yeah, success. There we go. That was my spiel about little synths, tiny synths. Great. Jay, when it comes from a pro perspective, what do you think are some fundamental flaws that a beginner can avoid in regards to choosing a MIDI controller or a DAW? That's actually a great question, Jay. I think that, as far as, maybe I'll answer these separately. So I'll answer DAW first, just because I think it might be a little bit more straightforward. Oftentimes, I think DAWs, each of them have their own like characteristics to them. If you have tried out different, I'll take a step back. I would say the first step that might be worth considering is to try out different DAWs first. So try out Logic, try out Live. For example, Live is currently having a 90-day free trial, and so is Logic. Pro Tools, I think, has some kind of free trial that you could look into. Bitwig, off the top of my head, I think I remember that there's like it's actually a free full version, but you will just have limited functionality for the demo version. I would say try it out first, and if for some reason there's one that you end up finding you particularly enjoy, like maybe, and it could even be for reasons like you just like the look of it more. For example, for me, in my case, like I love the look of Logic. I think that's actually why I keep going back to it a lot, but I love the session view of Live. So that's for me why I use different kinds of DAWs. That's it. I think once you've tried out the a DAW, and once you think you might like it, commit to that. Like learn that DAW. I would say like I'm a weird case because I use many different kinds of DAWs. But if you're just starting out, commit to one DAW. Learn that DAW, learn its basic functions. So like how to put MIDI into it, how to record audio in it, all these basic kinds of functions. And then if you feel like you're reaching a limit of it, then maybe you could explore or revisit some of the other DAW options that you have. And I think that's a good approach because it kind of forces you in a way to just stick to something and to learn something up to the level of knowledge that you should be having before you can make other decisions with like, okay, maybe another DAW is better for me, etc. Someone, I can't remember who this quote comes from, and it's not good. I need to find out who it comes from, but I think someone once told me, or I heard that the limit of our knowledge is where we learn. Like that is the place where we learn. So I think if you're just starting to learn until you know what you know in a DAW. And if you need to expand that knowledge and learn more beyond that, then maybe explore different DAW options. Now for the MIDI controller stuff, my general recommendation is to honestly not buy anything that's expensive. Like if you can buy a $100 controller like the MPK Mini, go for it. That was my first controller. I still have it. It's lasted me years. If I need to carry it around with me, I will. For example, nowadays when I travel, or if I travel, because now we're not traveling, but if I had to travel, I would the first controller I would bring would probably be Push if I had the option of bringing a luggage with me. If I didn't, like if I could only bring my backpack, I would probably just go for the MPK Mini just because I know it really well too. And I guess the philosophy is kind of similar to the DAW thing that I mentioned. It's like if you have a controller, commit to that controller, know it inside out, and once you realize that, oh wait, I can't actually do this, then it's time for you to upgrade to your next controller. Like, to be frank, I didn't even get Push until like I had used Live and learned how to use Live. And then I was like, okay, maybe Push can help. And it did. It took me to the next level. So I almost think of things as like, almost like games in a way. Like you get to a level, you play the game, and then you kind of level up and then you get to the next game. So it's a lot of the next level. So it's kind of like leveling up continuously as like plateaus in a way. So I hope that helps, Jay. Really great questions. Yeah, thanks everyone. Really appreciate it. I think like, I'm glad people are excited about Push tricks. I love Push too. I mean, at this point, if you've been on 343 Labs YouTube channel, you might know me as like Controller Lady or Push Lady, but I feel like it's an effective name. So there we go. Yay, thank you for subscribing, Mickey. Appreciate it. Avon said, is it okay to have speakers ranging from 80 hertz, or would that take away some low-end frequencies and make it hard to mix on? That's a great question, Avon, and I think it really depends on which stage you are in your music making journey. I think a lot of us are at different stages. When I first started out making music in a more production-oriented sort of sense, I only had these headphones. They're the same headphones that I have. They're my Apple headphones, and they were the only things that I mixed on because I didn't even have these. And I think it really depends on your journey. For me, at that point in time, these were all that I needed because I wasn't really mixing stuff. I was really just producing stuff. So I think the question depends on where you are in your journey, Avon. I'm not sure of who you are as a person or what you are doing. But I would say definitely if you were attempting to do this at a professional level, having a cutoff at 80 would be slightly detrimental just because sometimes even frequencies for bass and for kick drums can go way below 80, maybe even 20 and 30 if you're going into sub-range. So I would say it would be detrimental in that sense if you were doing mixing at a professional level. But if you're just starting out, I wouldn't say like spend too much money on investing in a really expensive pair of speakers. It might be worthwhile getting headphones though. And maybe this is kind of the other part of my home studio setup that I love a lot, my Audio-Technica MTH50Xs. I've had these again for years. They were my first pair of headphones. So these and my earphones are probably like my Apple earphones are probably the two headphones that I've had personally in my life. So that's where we are. With those. That might be something worth looking a little bit more into instead. TWD, any advice for breaking up with gear? You find myself highly susceptible to sunk costs. Yeah, totally. So maybe I'm not sure if this is good as a suggestion or not, but it's how I've done it. Sometimes if I find that I'm like with a piece of gear, and I haven't really been actively using it. I have this problem actually with a lot of MIDI keyboards because again, controller lady, love keyboards. I would sell them to get rid of them. I would sell the keyboard. I would just be like, I put it on listing for sale, and I'd be just like, I would just sell it and it would be gone. And then I would have to force myself to use what I was using. And maybe that's how I got to where I am right now. I think like, even though I have a lot of controllers, I know exactly what each of them does. Like right now, basically behind this setup that you see me at, that's my performance setup over there. And I'm looking at all of the pieces of gear that I have. And I pretty much know exactly each single thing that I would do with each of these pieces of gear. I feel like if you're at that stage, maybe you don't need to get rid of anything necessarily. But yeah, if you do need to get rid of something, sell it. Sorry. Or here's another thing, and this kind of depends also on what you do as well. But a couple of folks know that I do a lot of education stuff. I also work a lot with some students who are underprivileged and not able to afford things. So I have given a number of pieces of gear to my students before, and oftentimes it's, for a lot of them, that gear has made that difference that they needed to again get to that next learning level. So yeah, more than happy to give that to them. And it's mostly been things like just like MIDI keyboards. So like what I mentioned just now, MIDI keyboards or small controllers like the Nano Control or the LPK as well, the Akai controller that has the pads and the knobs. Sometimes that's really all that they need, and also in a way that they need to inspire them that, hey, it's actually possible to, even if I have just this one thing, I can make amazing music with it. So that's a little bit of my work outside of the other more higher educational stuff that I do as well. Yeah, totally. The micro granny is kind of funny. I think like all of Moog's terms, like the grandmother and the mother, and are like kind of funny. And then D-Fam, the drummer from another mother. That's funny also. Jeff, yeah, with the Electron stuff, man, the Electron stuff. I think Thomas also uses a bunch of Electron stuff. Thomas from 343 Labs as well. Caesar had a question. Would you recommend buying first a MIDI controller like the Arturia Mini Lab Mark II or something like the Launchpad Mini? Okay, cool. That's actually a really great question, Caesar. Since you specifically mentioned those two controllers, between them, I would actually probably recommend the Launchpad Mini, especially if it's the Mark III. So if it's the Launchpad Mini Mark III versus the Mini Lab Mark II, I would say get the Launchpad Mini Mark III because there's a mode that you can put it in that lets you do keys also in addition to drum stuff and other stuff. The Arturia Mark II, it's pretty good as well, but you're not going to have any integrated control of session view. So the Launchpad Mini is going to give you session view. It'll also give you the drums, and it'll give you a keyboard layout. You won't have physical keys, of course, like a keyboard, but it's going to give you that keyboard layout, so you might be able to still play chords on it too. So I hope that helps. But that's it. The Mini Lab Mark II is really great too. We have a bunch of those at our 343 Labs physical location as well. And, Ryan, thank you for that info. Pro Tools has Pro Tools first. I'm really backlogged on the comments, everyone. Thank you for keeping them all coming. It's been really fun. Cool. Awesome. Studio One is a great one too, Cosmic J. Thank you for bringing that up too. The Studio One is really great as well. Cakewalk, yeah, definitely. Bitwig, I love Bitwig. It's, as some of you also know this too, but I'm also a Bitwig certified trainer. So I have my Bitwig poster on my wall there that's just looking at me. I don't have a poster from Ableton yet, so maybe when I get my Ableton poster, I'll also put it up on a wall or something. But my Bitwig poster is very lovingly staring at me from the side and reminding me of why I like Bitwig. And I should also mention then that usually when I do anything that's related to modular stuff, I do tend to favor Bitwig over Live, just because it has some really great integration. And the downside is that, of course, I wouldn't be able to use Push with it in that way to do looping kinds of things. But with Bitwig, you can tune your instruments really nicely. You can tune your hardware instruments really nicely from within the DAW. Like, it'll tune it automatically for you. Highly recommend folks who are interested in hardware and checking out Bitwig, especially if you work with modulars. John, in regards to setting up the room acoustics, Abe mentioned the importance of acoustic treatment last week. Can you share your view, please? Also in regard to recording vocals, because I know you sing. Yeah, sure. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So shout out to the songs that I make really good. I really appreciate your support, Jonathan. Thank you. So I completely agree with the acoustic treatment thing. And just to put things into perspective, whenever I record my vocals, I never record them in this empty space. This empty space that you kind of see over here is like it's one of my other sections of my apartment. I have another section of my apartment that has a lot of cushions in it. It's basically my bedroom. So it has the bed, and it has a lot of other like elements like curtains and things that can absorb sound. So pretty much all the vocals that you've ever heard me do in any of my songs were recorded in that kind of situation with this right here. So this is an excellent segue. Thank you, Jonathan. I know that we're closing in on our time, but maybe this is the last thing I'll mention for vocal recording. Let's bring this over. Can you see this? Yes, I think you can. I have this like vocal shield that unfortunately, so I'm in a weird situation too, and this depends on your own living situation too. But I'm in an apartment where it's not really advisable to drill anything into the walls or to, make any holes or anything. So I can't really hang stuff up. And I do want to be mindful of what I'm putting on walls. But in my case, I have this over here. So this is kind of like it helps a lot with recording vocals for me. It's called a sound absorber or a sound panel, or some people just loosely call it that, but it's basically foam here, and the foam is behind your mic. So I found that it has helped me a lot personally when I use it in my recording setup with all of the more absorbent materials. So if you aren't able to, put things on walls like I am, then maybe just recording audio. If you need to record it in a space, recording it in a place where a lot of that sound is going to be absorbed is really advisable. Also, if you have a rug, that's going to help a lot too. So I hope that helps, Jonathan. TWE, that's a good one. Renoise. I'm actually a big fan of Reason. I think it's great. I still use Reason a lot. I'm a big fan of Combinator specifically. I think it's great as well. And Cosmic, instructor level on Cubase. Yeah, Cubase is really great though. I still use Cubase now and then as well. The Waves NX headphone utility. I have not tried it out yet. I have heard some good things about it though. Have you tried it out, Cosmic J? I'd love to hear from you if you did try it out as well. Cosmic J, Ableton needs Macs to go deep with synthesis. Really interesting. I mean, Live, Ableton is the company. Live is the software. But yeah, Live, interestingly enough, I think from my experience, and maybe this is just, again, speaking from my experience, if you know how to use synthesizers in Live, you don't need any other synthesizer. And maybe this is even shocking to a couple of people. Any sounds that you've heard in my last EP, which just got released in August, and anything that you heard from my album, which was released in April, none of those had any external sounds that were not live. So that's my hot take on this. You can listen to those and see what you think of them. Maybe they do sound bad. By all means, if they sound bad, then that's great. Not that that's great, but that's good. But I made them with all stock live sounds. Didn't use anything for Serum or like Sylenth, although I'm big fans of Serum and Sylenth. Those are the two most external things that I use for sounds outside of that. And that's because for my album that I did in April, it was actually a community kind of album. So I made it with young women and girls of Asian descent and non-binary kids as well in Queens, based off a grant that I got. Thank you to the Queens Council on the Arts. Big love to them. So I made that with them in the community, and I didn't want to use any extra kinds of things. So we just made things simple, made things straightforward, used only internal live sounds. And yeah, so TWD is with me on the drilling stuff. The security deposit stuff. Yeah, I think I love where I live right now, and my landlady and landlord are very lovely. So I do want to be respectful of them as well. Ryan, they were all stock live. I feel like it shocks people sometimes, but if you know how to massage live, live will be nice to you. Like if you know how to get stuff out of live sounds, pretty much like all the stuff, and maybe this is also just by virtue of the fact that I have to do a lot of things just with live sounds sometimes, because I'll work with a client on their computer and they don't have Serum or they don't have Sylenth, but we still want to get cool sounds. So how do we do that? We just use analog or we use operator. Cosmic, yes, nice. Very glad to hear about that. I may actually try it out. Thank you for the heads up about that. Appreciate it. The Abbey Road plugin. Again, I've heard about that too. I haven't tried it personally, but it may be worth a shot. I've heard good things about it too. On that note, I know that we're over time. Sorry about that, everyone, but it was so nice hanging out with all of you. Once again, 343 Labs is based in Manhattan and in Berlin. We have programming there in our physical locations, but we also have things happening online, like we do 343 TV every day, where we welcome you to join us to chat about things in our live streams. And in this case, I had a few things in my home studio setup that I mentioned today. including some vocal stuff and some mic stuff. I should mention also that this is an SM7B that I very recently acquired, but I'm very happy about it because I've been a big fan of this mic for many years, and I've now been able to afford it. So I've recently purchased this as well. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Please subscribe if you'd like to keep up for more. Tomorrow on Thursday, we have Max coming in to speak about Theory Thursdays, and that's going to be pretty exciting as well to kind of look into. Yeah, if you have any final questions, please let us know in the chat. Maybe I'll get to them like right after I sign off here if I can. Or if not, please tune in next week for some stuff from Justin. He's going to hopefully be back to run this show that he actually runs. I run the Monday show. So I'll see you again on Monday. I won't see you again on Wednesday. But thank you so much again, everyone, for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Big farewells to everyone. Thank you also for being so supportive. And this is really what I love about the 343 community. So until next time, have a wonderful day and see you all soon. Bye.
Morning light, break me through the dark. One so bright, show your dying star. Cold as ice, piercing through the heart. Warm as skies, melt the days apart. Wanna hide away, try to run away, tell me if you could save me. Got me falling through ashes, in the dust of the winter blue. Crying no, take me back home, don't leave me alone. Keep me from running to you, still lost in the ashes, in the wake of your burning truth. Rising no, up in the night, don't put out your fire, won't keep me from longing for you. Awake, caught in fantasies, can't replace broken memories. Gonna find a way, gotta throw away all of what you gave. No, can't let this go. Wanna hide away, try to run away. Tell me if you could save me. Got me falling through ashes, in the dust of the winter blue. Crying no, take me back home, don't leave me alone. Keep me from running to you, still lost in the ashes, in the wake of your burning truth. Rising no, up in the night, don't put out your fire, won't keep me from longing for you. Oh, hold me through the violence, slowly with your silent prayer. Take me back home now, cover me whole and loud, down in the ocean of you. Got me falling through ashes, in the dust of the winter blue. Crying no, take me back home, don't leave me alone. Keep me from running to you.